Welcome back to the Nightlife Podcast, Season 4, Episode 10. Guys, all right, so this is an episode that has been, there's a lot of people asking for me to talk to this guy for a while, since the beginning. People that have known me for a long time, people that are from Miami, people that are in the industry. And it's basically somebody who I've seen from different sides of the equation. I started basically from watching what he was doing at the beginning and copying some of it and trying to do some things better. Not sure I was able to or have been able to, but this guy is a legend in the nightlife industry here in Miami, at least when it comes to the Latin community, Colombian, Venezuelan, Cuban, you name it. So he is a club owner who I have also competed with. I tried to copy at some point. I competed, with later, and then we worked together. And now I can actually call him my friend. So without further ado, Aurelio Rodriguez. How are you, my friend?
Great, man. Great to be here.
Dude.
Thank you for inviting me on.
And let me tell you one thing. First of all, I started doing this podcast almost 2 years ago, and every week after every episode that comes out, there's a certain amount of people that send me messages asking for people that they would like to see. And since day one, you are one of those people that people in Miami especially want to hear about. And they always ask. As a matter of fact, some people, because I guess most of our viewers don't know the history, but that's one of the reasons. Everybody's kind of like, oh man, do you even talk to the guy? Do you even know where he is? Do you know what's up with his life or whatever? So let's I wanted to mention that definitely. So you are somebody that's
because there's a lot of new generations, right?
Oh, 100%. Let me tell you that's one of the.
You continued. You kept doing this for a while, so that's surprising.
It's been a while, definitely. Aurelio, why don't we start there? Why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, when you were involved in the industry, what you did, etc.
It was a long run, so I don't know where to start, man.
Let's start. So let's start here. How did you end up in it? How did you end up getting into it?
So, all my life I've liked to go out, and I've always enjoyed the club scene. And then towards the end of the 90s, I got into modeling.
All right.
And the modeling industry was in South Beach, which is surrounded with clubs. Those were the early days, right? I'm not 90s, the late 80s.
Right.
But nevertheless, that's, when I had the most exposure, and that's where the industry was. And then, I was going to school. I was, my thing was finance. I was going to UM and doing doing what every Cuban boy does, which is to go to school and study business.
Right.
Undecided Cuban boy. And then in 1992, my dad passed away.
Correct.
And I just graduated from UM, and I was still doing the modeling thing. So my dad had passed away, and they had a little coffee shop where the Covacha is now.
Right.
107th and 25th. Back then there was nothing there.
Right.
So, when he passed away, we had those properties. The idea was to kind of like go in there and put it up to date, and then just kind of rent it as a little country shack out in undeveloped Dade, right? Up on 107th.
Right.
So one thing led to another, and I started doing that, right? And at the same time, I would also go to New York for weeks and then come back, and during the 6 month to 1 year period, and during that period, since there was no businesses in that area, the people from Univision, because Univision did have its headquarters out there,
close by, right?
Right now it's like in the middle of Doral, but back then, again, Univision had built their massive headquarters at the very edge of Doral.
Right.
So when they would go to lunch, they would stop by La Covacha. So
Right.
I started establishing relationships and stuff with the people of Univision and camera people, like talent and whatnot. And I would actually kind of like leverage the whole modeling thing, and they would keep coming back, and we established a friendship and stuff like that. And we had an old jukebox. We had an old jukebox in the place, and it just kind of like evolved very organically
Right.
that they would come Fridays after work for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to have a beer, keep talking, shooting the shit, and I'm putting music, putting quarters in the jukebox. And after a couple of beers, maybe one or two people would start dancing in this little, I don't know, it might be 20 by 20. It was a very small, the original
Covacha.
cafe, Covacha, yeah. And that's sort of what gave me, the insight into, hey, there's something here. But taking it serious wasn't part of the deal at that moment.
Right.
And I was still doing, I thought maybe acting would come after modeling and whatnot. So my mind wasn't there yet.
What age are we talking here, Aurelio?
I was 22. My dad
Right.
passed away. I was 22, 1989.
All right. My father used to be a client actually of that little cafe. He used to stop to have coffee, and I remember him mentioning something about being the coldest beer. There was something about that corner and going to have a beer there, and they had the coldest beer there.
That's a great point. Which that was the trade secret also of the place, the coldest beer, right? We actually did have an ice cream freezer that we would load up with the cases of the Budweisers, and when you pulled them out, they would be all frosty white.
Nice.
So that was kind of like the coldest beer in town
Right.
was a tagline at that time, and you're right, that was one of the draws. Also, that made it interesting.
That's
So,
cool.
so yeah, listen. So that was what, like maybe by 1991, of doing this, I had a potential buyer. This was like the pivoting, the turning point. After about a year and change of kind of like getting it going and trying to establish a little something that we could flip to a potential buyer. We had a buyer. We had a buyer, and we had negotiated everything, the lease, the sale, and whatnot. And the day of the I mean, I spent money on attorneys and everything. And the day of the closing, the guy disappeared. And we would call, and we would beep him, because about that time there wasn't no cell phone. I think we were
Right.
beeping him, and he wouldn't call. Anyways, we got a call a day later from a friend saying, "Listen, so and so, can't remember his name, told me to call you and share with you that he bought another business in the beach, and that he won't be buying yours." And I was so insulted and so angry, right?
Huh.
That somebody could be so informal, that I was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm gonna teach this. I'm like,
Right.
enough. And
It's
yeah,
crazy. It's crazy how many people, Aurelio, how many people actually get into this industry because of some small little thing like that, that
yeah,
ticks them off or whatever. But you are so close always, when you actually enjoy this lifestyle or whatever, you're always so close, to getting in it. You know what I mean? It's just a little push
yeah,
needed, right?
yeah. So, well, that was a push that committed.
Okay.
The commitment push. I mean, a year had passed already, and to be honest with you, I was kind of like already, like I always, when I do business or something, I like to see. What I do is I'll see who's the most successful player in the space that I'm in. Who's the king? Who's the guy?
Right.
And I'll see how good he's doing. And that to me is your maximum potential, right?
Correct.
And I remember that I was like, all right, so this guy, I think his name was Britt Bradford. He was the guy. He was like an obsession. He was doing Calvin Klein. He was doing all these things, but he wasn't rolling in the dough. He was doing good, right?
Right.
But for guys back in that time, he wasn't rolling in the dough. So I was like, is this really what I want to do?
All right.
So I remember utilizing that thinking, and then this opportunity with when this guy kind of pulled back on the deal, and I said, you know what, let me keep running with this. And that was kind of a turning point. And then it was just a matter of months before I called my agent one day, and I'm like, hey, listen, don't call me no more for castings. I'm kind of over it. I'm taking a break,
Okay.
and I'm going to focus on this. And I remember that's when I put it into overdrive.
Yeah.
I remember, like in that time, taking the initiative to start, getting that little jukebox. And
Right.
now I had some speakers wired to the back. I remember, planning out like a piece of concrete that I could lay out in the back, and
For
then and
before you go into the middle of the story and the juice of the different things that have happened or whatever, I want to give a little context to those who are not from Miami or haven't been or aren't into the Latin community or crowd or whatever. How long was La Covacha around? What with you or your sister and your family in general?
yeah, look, the Covacha from day. I mean, it's still around. I mean, it
Right,
currently there's not in its original incarnation.
right,
The Covacha incarnation was about a 28 year run, 27-year run,
right.
um, from 1989 till we sold it in 2012.
All right. So
And the operator from 2012 to 2018 ran
right,
it as like a watcher, but really did a very bad job
right,
and ran it into the ground. And then since we're the owners of the venue, we brought in another owner. So the Covacha incarnation under our administration was what, 89, 99, 2009. So
yeah. It's
about 20,
almost
20,
three
40.
almost 3 decades, man. 2.5 decades. That's a long run. Anybody in the industry understands that that's very hard to do.
It was a long run. It was
I mean,
very
people talk about, for example, I mean, I'm gonna go with something completely opposite, but people talk about Studio 54, and it was something that was around for 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Studio 54, yeah, they had legal problems
Of
and,
course.
they reopened up when they got out of jail, I think, something like that.
Right. Let me ask you
But
one
yeah,
question. What is the one thing that you miss the most? Because you haven't been in it, for a couple of years, a few years. What is the one thing from that lifestyle or the nightlife or whatever that you miss the most?
well, I had a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of things happening at that time. I
Hmm.
mean, that was one of the few, and Miami, was very different back in that time.
Right.
There weren't many options. So it was a very, very popular club. It opened up a lot of doors to other business opportunities. It opened up a lot of doors to meeting a lot of interesting people
Hmm.
and a lot of important people also. It created a foundation, a business foundation for that I used as a springboard to other greater opportunities. And
Right.
from from an egotistical point of view, being young, being in your prime, having that background of modeling still resonating from some of the work and campaigns, it was fun being single and being able to meet a lot of
Right.
people. Yeah,
That
so.
definitely. Probably the one thing that Mariví, your wife, doesn't miss from it.
Oh, she doesn't miss.
Uh,
She doesn't miss me coming home late.
right, 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 right.
Hours were, listen, those were grueling hours, man. It was. I mean, I slept there practically. I would leave on a Friday when it was a small operation in the early days.
Right,
So I would I would close shop, count money. Before I had a full-time manager, count money. I would leave at
right,
3 or 3:30 to be back at 7
right,
to
right,
to reopen because it wasn't a club. This
right.
was a cafeteria. So
Correct.
you had to be open basically at 6:30 in the morning, not on Saturdays. That's why Saturdays I said 7.
Right.
You have to be open in the morning to serve the pastelitos, the
Mm,
café con leche, and
right.
then that would go into lunch, and then that would roll into like an afternoon Now I won't call it dinner, but afternoon snacks for people that would come, have
Right.
beer, and then it would evolve into the nighttime, to the
Which,
nighttime.
which, by the way, you had one of the longest and better known happy hours on Friday night for a long time.
Exactly.
How
The ha-
how how important was that for the whole business in general?
I think that was the core, man. That was the anchor of the business. The happy hour really was. It was like the numbers were before happy hour and after a happy hour. But that was like,
Right.
the yeah, that was the core anchor of the success of the club.
Definitely.
And I saw an opportunity. What really got it going, besides the cold beers, that contributed a lot. Uh, the polar beer, which is a beer, which is it's like the Budweiser of the Venezuelan community.
Correct.
They just started importing to Miami, and coincidentally, one of the reps stopped by my club that one afternoon or whatnot, started talking, and I said, sure, I would love to carry your beer, and he had this like 30-foot polar bottle. I'm not kidding. This was probably the biggest inflatable bottle that you don't even see these in the music festivals. This was the biggest, and I remember putting that. He let me have it, for the time being that I was, for promotion. And I would use that, and I would put it on the roof of the club.
Right.
And you see this thing from like, I'm not gonna say miles, but
right,
you could
right,
see
far
it
away.
miles away. You remember?
Right, definitely.
And, yeah, and that was like, that was like lighter fluid for
I mean, people that aren't from here again. This area is populated by Venezuelans, which is where this beer is from. So it definitely caught people's attention because, I mean, one of the things I remember, and by the way, you are married to a Venezuelan now, but back in the day, I remember people talking about, everybody would talk about this guy, Aurelio, because it was one of those things that you had to get to know the owner to go to a place or whatever. Everybody wanted to be friends with the owner, right? And then, but with Aurelio, there was this thing that a lot of people would actually be like, no, he's Colombian. No, he's Venezuelan. No. And a lot of them, like, no, he's actually Cuban. So it kind of worked for everybody in a way.
That did. Yeah, no, that happened a lot. A lot of people that didn't know would assume that, that I was Venezuelan, right?
Right.
Or that I was Colombian if it was during a Colombian period, because the Covacha evolved.
Right.
You could say that the 90s period, although it was the day-to-day, because of the Doral, was Venezuela. That was like the filler. It was the filler. Right. But we had a run in the 90s of mainstream hipster Miami.
Right.
The Miami college scene.
Right.
During the 90s, mid-90s, 95, 96, 97, 98. This is all pre-Brickell, pre-Winwood. You had a little bit of Coconut Grove.
Right.
You had a little bit, you had some in the beach, you did. And maybe one or two in Kendall.
Right.
So there was no alternative. And as far as Latin was concerned, nobody was doing Latin. We were doing Latin. Along later came you guys, but in the early days, that was our different. Besides the beer, it later became our music, the differentiator.
100%.
In the early days, if you wanted to dance Latin music, you had to go to these your grandparents'
type of venue.
Street. There was like literally, there was a place called Las Cascade. And you'd go there, have like 60, 70-year-old people with Spanish club. So there was no alternative. You know
what I think was also an amazing thing was, because you talk about this venue, it was really nothing, at the beginning, like you said, it was a cafeteria that became this, this thing. And yes, you made it look better, with time and everything. Sure. But I think nothing made it look better than the people that you had in it. You know what I mean? I think the crowd was the secret.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I was coming from the Miami Beach scene because of the modeling. So I had, that MO, that formula that was used over there, right? And I really had over there, a lot of times you do it sort of just to kind of play the game, to seem like it's important. I literally had to do that, right? Since I was on the edge of town and there was a lot of development, there was even there was a huge horse stable with like 100 horses and owners. So if I wasn't careful, you'd have guys with cowboy boots coming in and you'd have construction workers showing up after work because there was just so much happening there. So I literally had to, set some guidelines of after happy hour. How somewhat of a dress code to come in, right? To keep a little law and order in the place and, keep it, a lot of people talk that it was worse than it was, but, I mean,
with the years, definitely, I mean, but it definitely at the beginning, it started at a great quality. And I think also a hard thing to do was to make it where after it became maybe not so good because you have some, you have a lifespan or whatever, it was brought up a few times. I remember at a time when like guys like Ronald Rip, shout out to them, Ronald and Alejandro Lazardi, who was with you for a long time, brought back the Friday night to a nice crowd again,
Yeah.
and different things, different people.
That's yeah. Look, like you said, right? There is a life cycle, right?
Right.
These clubs have cycles. Some don't. Some get away with not having it.
Right.
I know that like I know my life cycles. I remember it was the '90s was mainstream Miami with Venezuelan filler, right? And then all the competition starting opening up, Wynwood, Miami Beach, all that. Not Wynwood, Brickell and whatnot.
Right.
So it's time to reinvent. Part of that is you got to bite the bullet for at least a year and a half. You've got to make a conscious, purposeful decision to let it kind of die out a bit.
Right.
You don't want to turn the lights off. You don't want to turn the lights off, but you underexpose yourself.
Correct.
Because there's a thing, there's points that you overexpose yourself.
True.
You run real hot. Then like how much more exposure can you get after? That's when you burn out, right?
Right.
So at least that's the way I did it. I would kind of pace it, run it up, and then competition pops up. So I knew,
right.
The time's coming where I'm gonna have to just ramp down, redo a new team,
right,
new target market, and this happened. This new cycle happened in 1999.
Okay.
I did reconstruction in 97, 1998, 98, 99. So we had 2 slow years. People kind of forgot a little bit about the club, loaded up with new promoters, and then this time we went really hard towards the Venezuelan market.
Right.
And then, it got reestablished as, Venezuelan go-to place.
Right. Let me ask you something. And by the way, when he says Venezuelan, it was a high class Venezuelan.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, wonderful crowd. I loved it, man.
I mean, I remember also the fact that you would always run into actors, actresses, well-known people from the community, definitely over there. So there's a lot of good memories for everybody.
Yeah. There is, man.
Aurelio, how important was the live music, and when did you make that decision of not being just a regular club with a DJ and have that, extra?
So the first concert that we did was Los Pericos, and I won't take credit for that one. I had this guy Jose.
Yeah.
And he came to me and he goes, "Oh man, this is a great place. This is his parking lot. This is a great place to set up a stage." And I'm like, "You think?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could really fill this place up." And I'm like, "Okay." And he mentioned this group. It was an Argentinian group.
Yeah.
Which a lot of overlap with Colombians and with Venezuelans.
Mainly Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody loved Los Pericos, even though they were from Argentina. It was reggae music.
Right.
So we worked together on this. I said, let's give it a shot. Set up this huge outdoor stage, and we put, for that concert, we put in like about easily 2,800. It was like the biggest event ever in the early 90s, right?
Right.
That kind of gave me an insight into the potential and, to live entertainment on a big scale. It's like 10x your numbers, right?
Right.
If you're doing, X amount, this just takes you to another level.
Right.
So that was it. I saw that opportunity, and the beautiful thing about it was nobody else was doing it.
Right.
There was no venue, it really, the club became a real go-to place for from 1,000 to 3,000 patron live music venue.
Definitely.
And you had to go to the big venues out in Miami, the
Correct.
theaters, and that's not, there's a lot of bands that are starting and they can't aspire to play in those places.
Still at this, after so many years, still there's no other venue where you can actually do that kind of, event, especially due to the investment nowadays. Bands are not what they used to, meaning price, what they're charging nowadays, especially because nowadays it's more reggaeton only, and reggaeton artists, one good song, boom, right away they go into the 30,000s. Back in the day, I remember you doing, artists like Los Pericos, for example, for like 12 grand or 8 grand or whatever,
Yeah, those were different days, man, and Latin artists basically wanted to break into the Spanish market, the Latin market, and they had to do a live venue, right? Live concert, because they were breaking into the radios. So, I was the only option. So I was able to benefit from that with pricing.
Yeah.
I was able to get real. I was able, to negotiate very good prices, and that took off a lot of the risk.
Right.
So
So those are
able to,
two of the factors. I'm always teaching the people, especially my students and people that listen to the podcast and everything, when it comes to live events at the clubs per se. Those two factors for me are the most important. Number one is how the cost of those bands when depending on what how the value, who's paying for it. Of course, is the venue paying or is the producer, the promoter paying for it, and what is the capacity? Because a lot of times they go into doing one of these bands at a venue that holds 500 people, and there's no way to make money on that.
can't make money. Yeah, you really can. And I mean, I think you're just being generous thinking about the band cost.
Right.
When you start factoring the marketing cost, the production cost, travel. I mean, there's so many other little intangibles that people don't think of.
Right.
And it's a tough business, man. You can take a bath.
You know what brings me to the how important it was for La Covacha itself? There's one ad that I would never forget. I don't know if it was a paid ad or if it was given to you, but there was a newspaper for Colombians, El Colusa, remember?
Yeah, sure.
Gabriela and Silvana.
Sure.
And you always had, and I remember back in the day when we were doing Carnaval de Barranquilla, our event, we were always competing for that cover, for that.
I stole that playbook from you.
Exactly. So that was like from my city direct. But anyway, with that one,
I stole that playbook from
oh,
you.
100%.
I did the first Carnaval de Barranquilla,
Right.
and I figured, let me try to do it bigger and better.
Right.
Let me try.
Exactly.
But I learned that I saw what you guys did. I'm like,
You know what? You know what's crazy? That we actually had one Carnaval that we did on the same night, and we both had almost 3,000 people in each event. It was crazy.
we both killed it that night. Everybody
Crazy.
was coming back. People would leave from mine to yours and back. How was it? How was it? No, it was
Oh yeah,
packed.
yeah.
Packed. Both packed.
Right.
It was
Crazy.
huh?
But the newspaper ad that they had, it was at the end of the year, and El Colusa had a big full page on all the concerts that had been at La Covacha that year.
Right,
I,
sure.
I can't forget that. And I remember and reading through all of them, whatever. I'm like, number one, how is this guy affording all of these things?
Sure.
And I was just like, man, I would have never thought of doing an ad just to remind everybody, look at all the shit that I had.
Sure, the run that we've had.
Yeah.
Oh, we had Oscar de Leon. I mean, I'm gonna go back to that time frame, and I'll think of the big heavy hitter,
Right.
Oscar de Leon.
Right.
The Colombian that passed away,
Joe Arroyo, definitely. Yeah.
Joe Arroyo.
Yeah.
You know, we managed to get him. We had managed to get him there, and that was huge.
Yeah. Joe.
That was a huge win, and others, right? That I can't think.
Oh
of.
yeah, no, I remember. I mean, it was a full page of just names of artists in different genres,
Different genres, absolutely.
So it was a good.
Yeah. No, look, there was also a promote. I don't remember Cardenas Fernandez.
Yeah.
They were a very big Hispanic concert promoting team organization. I mean, another level.
Before becoming CMN.
Actually
Already?
during that time.
Okay.
So what they would do is before they brought an artist, I established a relationship with Jorge Naranjo,
Right.
the leads for that big outfit, and they used basically my venue like a lab. So
Right.
they would bring in the artists. They were like, "Listen, man, we don't want to make money. We just want to see the response. Consider this a focus group
Right.
to see how this artist reacts, how they play." And whatnot, and so I had that was like another little run that I had this funnel of top tier up and coming artists
Right.
that I would take advantage and put them on stage, before they broke out. See, better than like we want to.
Oh, yeah.
Even though that one came from somebody else,
Right.
but sort of that time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was different. I mean, definitely the artists, like you mentioned those, and I can remember what we used to pay for those artists compared to what anybody asks now. The last time I was able to hire, for example, J Balvin, we paid him 30 grand. Actually, you know what? We did that's another big one, Nicky Jam at La Covacha, together with a bunch of different companies. We joined Robin, the Cubans, and other
Right,
gangs.
right.
So it was huge. Also, over 3,000 people at that event. It was crazy. Also, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, all those artists, we were able to get them at $30,000, $35,000 or so, compared to, for example, Joe Arroyo, who I used to pay 12 grand to, and he would bring the same amount of people. And sometimes in liquor it would be more sales even. So
Sure.
it was a
Depending
little
on the
different.
crowd that the artist pulled, In
Definitely.
fact, and a lot of times you had an artist that was overpriced, but
Yeah.
you knew that the target market was
Right.
the kind that would sit down and order 3, 4, 5 bottles throughout the night.
Right.
So you were going to have a loss leader in your production, right? Because you knew that you would double down on the liquor sales,
Right.
and make for that gap. So
What?
these are things, and I say this so that your listeners that are
Hmm.
in production and whatnot, kind of like, there's ways to look at this. Another thing is, a lot of time when you're in the early days, you weren't getting sponsors. If you don't have a reputation and you still haven't established credibility, it's hard to go to a sponsor and ask for a 20, 30, $40,000 a sponsorship,
Right.
right, to help you out. So you really had to pocket it out of this, because part of the formula that carries you, part of the carry is the sponsor.
Right.
These are the guys that help you, get to the finish line, so that you don't have to run with all the risk. In
Right.
the early days, you don't have that. Who are
Right.
you? Can't give
Definitely.
you money. I mean,
Definitely. What was if you can think of the top of your head, the biggest mistake you ever made that you felt like I shouldn't have done that? It could, in the nightlife, it doesn't have to be a concert or whatever, but in general. Besides getting in it.
what was the question again? Say it again.
Biggest mistake you made in the industry, something that you did, either an event or a decision you made that you felt, oh man, I should have not gone that route 100%. Or was it that perfect?
I'll keep thinking about it.
All right.
I'll keep thinking
All right.
about it. Well, there's a lot of shit. I blew it. I shouldn't have. This was, but I never had, not that I can remember at this moment.
Right.
No, nothing's jumping to
I mean,
mind that I
it wasn't
wow.
it wasn't that big then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That definitely. We had one carnival, for example, that we were gonna go not head to head with you that year. It's just that the venue we had in Key Biscayne, remember, that venue was closed. It was sold, and we left, and we had to find a venue. And the venue that we found was in Doral as well, very close to you. So we became yeah, exactly. So I remember what the actual name was then. It was Soccer 7 or something. It was just a soccer field or whatever. So
Right.
we went to do the event there, and we were told there was one issue with one permit that was not going to permit live music at the end or whatever, during the event or whatever. But the owner said, George, I remember, said, just, don't worry, I got it taken care of. It's fine. Everything is good. That event, we ended up having almost 4,000 people. And we ended up having to return the money to most of the people because we opened at 8 o'clock, and at 8:01, we had every entity that could close us right there asking for this permit, and they closed the event. But they couldn't close the whole thing. I don't know if you remember this venue, but it had an indoor part that they could sell liquor and have music there.
Yeah.
They could not. The permit that we didn't have was for the live music outdoor.
Outside. Yeah.
Right.
I remember somewhat. I remember
Right.
a little bit.
So
And you guys probably thought I sent the cops.
oh, we blamed it on you 100% for like the next 5 years, and and then we So the point is this: we had to turn off the music outside, but the bands that were there, everybody, we had like 8 bands playing that day. Like, we invested a lot of money on that event, and they decided, you know what, we're not gonna go. We're gonna play with no sound or whatever, just a cappella here with the people. And they just started little groups in different areas, in different soccer field. There was a lot of people. Even though we did not make money, we lost like 50 grand that day, but which for promoters, it's it's not good at all. Especially,
It was a memorable day, though. I mean, it was a great event.
oh, in
You
general,
couldn't make that. You couldn't invent that.
correct,
You couldn't reproduce that. You couldn't plan that.
right,
These things that kind of just evolve and it leaves a more lasting memory.
right,
It's like one of those things that you'll never forget, right?
100%.
You make money, but the way it evolved into an incredible night where the band members probably partook with everybody.
I mean, there's a lot of people I know that would have quit the industry, the business right away. I can tell you that to me it was just the most expensive party I've ever had. I took it as that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was not a downer in the end, you know.
I lost money. I've lost money in events. I did. I mean, nothing's perfect. But that I can remember, I never had one of those that I had to do soul searching and
Right.
say, "Am I in the right business?" I
Right.
didn't.
Right.
I never had one of those. I had flops, and like, damn, all this work, and I'm lucky if I lost a couple grand, right?
Right.
It
Right.
was, but look, the biggest mistake is my biggest mistake wasn't an event. It was not buying the adjacent property that was next to my property, which was offered to me
Okay.
at that time at a price point that by today's standard is ridiculous.
Okay.
And and me wanting to allocate money to the present day operation instead of like looking a little bit further down the road,
Right.
thinking that opportunity was always going to be there.
Mhm.
That was probably the biggest miscalculation I did. It did affect me long term, even though I kind of worked around it as the place grew and expanded, and I ran out of parking as the
Right.
street got expanded. Parking on the street, I mean, I didn't have parking capacity for
Right.
thousands of people, right? So I was scrambling, renting, spending $5,000 to
Right.
rent property across the street and seven in the other corner just
Right.
to accommodate big events. Had I bought this property, at a tenth of the price a few years earlier, I
Right.
would have controlled my whole destiny there.
I
So
mean,
I think that's
I remember before I would go to one of our events, I would drive by to see, okay, how is this guy doing today or whatever. But back when we were competing, and it's crazy because the way we would measure was by the parking lots. You know, we would be like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
where are the cars today? How far are these cars today? How far is the line?
yeah, man. No, that was marketing. That was the best marketing. That row of cars that
Yeah.
went endlessly to the end of, that was the best. And then when they expanded the road and you didn't have that anymore, and everything was organized in
Right.
different areas, then you lost that excitement.
Yeah. So for us, it became another type of competition because we were like, we'd have your biggest night was Friday, and then mine was Saturday during that time. So it was
Yeah,
competition, but we were competing in a different way in that sense, you know, as to it wasn't the same crowd the same night,
it wasn't. It wasn't.
you know, in the end. So, but like,
We're
who's
getting my
doing?
private crop.
But who's got the biggest? You know what I mean? It's that was the competition. It was like who's So the line, I remember people going over there to Key Biscayne and being, oh man, the line got all the way to the bridge today, and that was like, okay, we're doing good. You know, like
Yeah. No, I
doesn't matter.
remember
No,
you had that whole parking strip on Key Biscayne, and that
yeah.
was
Well, we were also renting out there. You know, some of the street and some across the street and different areas just to make sure that people had some places to park. We were not owners, as meaning especially landowners, which is another story. You guys being landowners, I think that's one of the things always everybody looked at as these guys are not going anywhere.
right. It looked like, remember, like I said, when you cycle down, there's overexposing, and then when you start underexposing yourself, to take a break, let people forget about you. So then when you start re-promoting, it
Hmm.
starts really resonating. Not everybody has the luxury of, chilling out for a year,
Oh,
cooling off.
definitely.
Pay rent, when you got a $20,000, rent that you got to come up with every month.
Right.
You can't. You got to run hot. You got to run on overdrive. You
Definitely.
gotta you can't. So you don't have that luxury of kind of like taking your foot off the gas for a couple months to chill things out, reinvent, and then come back with a new scheme. So yeah,
Definitely.
definitely owning the property is always a good benefit.
So I wanted to also say hello to your sister, by the way, because I know she's gonna be watching this. And I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
What do you say to those who are getting to this industry with their family?
Listen, I mean, we didn't. She did her thing. I did mine.
Right.
There really. I prevented overlap. You know what I'm saying? My formula was in place. I left the place operating. She came. She was administrative. She was doing housekeeping, and then I ventured off into another business, into technology. I saw, the opportunity to create a marketing platform
Right.
that nightclub users actually use. So you know that story. We won't get into it now because we
Right.
just it on time. So when I sold and I focused on that business, so it was sort of a handoff. It was a clean handoff. So
Right.
she was able to express herself and her creativity and her ideas, right,
Right.
in her own ways, right. So if you have defined roles and you're going to work with family, and the role is you're in charge of promotions, and you're in charge of the creative aspect. I'm in charge of running the books. I'm in charge of counting the money and paying the vendors.
Right.
Then if your roles are defined, it could work. It could work very well.
Right.
If there's overlap in the roles, then you start getting
Correct.
friction. You start getting.
So it's good to avoid that. I mean, I would definitely avoid it 100% anyway, either way. But
And correct. Yeah, listen, working with families is always a tough proposition,
right.
especially yeah. Look,
I thought you were gonna say, especially Teresa. No, I'm just I'm just kidding.
no, no. Look, if you have to do it and you don't have a choice, at least define your roles.
Correct.
Define your roles. This is your job description. This is mine. I'm in charge of this. You're in charge of that. There's no overlap. My decisions don't affect yours. They do, obviously.
By the way, I had the opportunity. I've had a long career myself. I had the opportunity to work with the venue. I had the opportunity to work after being competition to work with both of you. And I can actually say, you guys. First of all, you guys are extremely different. In the way you operate and work, whatever your energies and everything, but you are both. Number one, you were both loved the venue and the business and the family business. Not even I'm not even gonna comment how much everybody loved your mother. But so it was a really mom and pop's kind of business. Ran that way. Everybody that worked in it felt that way. And our relationship, with both of you was when it comes to the business part of it, it was great, because we always felt that you guys knew what you were doing. You guys knew where you were going. And again, each one with its own roles and good and bad things, I guess, as do all of us for sure.
I think, and she, because the way we were raised, right? This is even. So, she might be a little friendlier. I might be a little bit more drier, even though sometimes it doesn't look that way. I might be a little bit, I don't know. We might have different approaches, but the key, I think, we never fucked anybody over. And I'll use that word freely. We never, and you did a deal with us, with me or whoever, and after I negotiate and I beat you up as much as I can, right? And once it's on paper, you can go to bed knowing that at the end of the day, when we count the money, we're gonna keep our commitments. And I think that goes for her as well as for me. And I think that's part of I think that has been part of the success of the club and our ability to bring in promoters and do cross events with other people, because you knew that you weren't gonna that whatever was negotiated was gonna be, like we say in Spanish, cumplido.
I don't think there's any way to survive 27 years if you're not that way. You know what I mean? Nobody comes back. There's only a certain group of people that end up being the ones that produce the events, the ones that sell the artists, the ones that you do business with, right? In the end. So I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I can tell you this. We talked about El Carnaval de Barranquilla. It was an event that was created completely from us, as you mentioned. It was an idea that we started, being that we come from there.
Exactly.
But the moment that my Carnaval did not have a venue, my first choice became, let me do it over there. Sure. And I had a deal with you that I made probably less money than other deals that I had, but I knew for a fact that I was gonna get my shit. You know?
Exactly.
So
a lot of times you go to venues and you strike deals, and it could be in writing and signed in contract, and in the middle it gets changed.
Right.
I've heard stories. Hey, listen, this is what's due to me. This is the event, and I've heard that the owner says, I know I said that, but I'm losing too much money, so I'm sorry, man. This is what's gonna be now. That's unheard of, man.
Right.
Like you can't do long-term business that way.
Right.
And I always said that. I always say, listen, you can say I'm a pain in the ass. I'm arrogant. I'm grosero. Whatever. What you'll never be able to say is that myself or anybody in my establishment that you do business with is a thief or
Right.
has no word.
Right.
So
I agree. Um,
completely.
one more question. Have you thought ever of getting into it again? Meaning, in the nightlife, not at La Covacha?
Look, I have a family now, so and I think nightclubs have changed a lot too. So
Hmm.
I think the old formula of big box full of with music, and no, I definitely wouldn't get into that. I think there's easier ways to make money. So I do have a concept that I've been working on, small footprint, low overhead, and it's liquor and food, and
Okay.
it's incubating, and when the time is right, it'll be there, and if the time doesn't come, it's still gonna be there,
Right.
and that's it,
And
but this is
what?
like a project. It's a creative expression that I've been working on.
Got it. Got it.
It's
Because it's
Yeah.
always there, right? You always want to, you know.
I think, look, like I call, for me, my club was a canvas.
Right.
I'm a creative person, you right?
Hmm.
And it was a creative outlet. It's
Right.
like an artist. An artist, works on different materials, on sculpting, on canvas,
Right.
with iron. So mine was this object that I
Right.
would hang things from. I would play with lighting,
Right.
and then I would see. And what is art supposed to do? Invoke an emotion, right? To the viewer, to the so and then I would be able to benefit
Right.
seeing the visitors enjoy it.
Right. What are you doing nowadays?
So as you know, I got into technology. So it was a big shift. When I sold my company, I did really well with that, and part of it meant that I had to go corporate. So I went to work, with this company out in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
It's called Dotster, and then they got acquired by this company called Endurance International,
Okay.
which is GoDaddy's
Okay.
biggest competitor, which is hosting domain names, and it was out in Boston with a lot of smart people that went public. So I had that, I was wearing that corporate hat for till 2014. They went public. We had shares. Then the Miami office, they consolidated everything to Boston and Texas. So we closed that. So since 2014, I've been freelancing. I have some properties, and make some short-term projects, you could say,
Got it.
but nothing, no long-term commitment to any big startup. The kids are older too, so I don't want to take time away.
Right.
I like the flexibility of being able to do what I want with them whenever I want to.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, one of the good things about not being in it at this moment in time is this crisis we're going through. What do you think you would be doing different than anybody else, or is there anything,
But for me, I have a couple opinions on this. I think that it's horrible, right? Yeah, look, a lot of people are taking a beating. A lot of people are losing everything.
right?
Not only in the nightclub business, but also in the hospitality business,
Right.
even a mom and pop restaurant.
Right.
And but at the same time, I think that it forces you to evolve and rethink your game.
Hmm.
And I think the al fresco dining concept that kind of evolved. I mean, Miami's always been an outdoor dining place,
Right.
just because it's Miami.
Now more
But
than ever.
now more than ever, and it's changed a little bit of, it's added a couple of different layers of variables to it that people can take advantage of. So it's forced people to rethink.
Right.
So it's positive because now there's more levers to push in your business. When everything opens up, now you have more levers, right?
Right.
Because you learned new little tricks, and the playbook got bigger
Completely.
because of
You know
you
what?
learned.
And I keep telling people that I think that also the playing field got leveled also, because now it's whoever comes up with the better idea of because it's more about getting those people back out there, having something that people want to be there and feel comfortable in.
Yeah, I think if your product is good, if you have a
Mhm.
good product and it's comfortable and it's done with love and like if if you're giving back, let me add this. I think for your views more than anything, you always have to give back. And I'll
Mhm.
use this example, and I know it's shifting from what we're talking about. A lot of operators, they make a lot of money and they just put that money away, and and the venue, gets beat up and no love gets put into it, and no money does not get reinvested into the place.
Right.
And I think that you need to always have a budget that that you're going to reinvest, so that the people, when they come back, they see that you're thinking about them, giving them something new lights, new speakers, new decorations, a new patio,
Right.
a new facade, but always updating and giving back. I think
Right.
that's underrated. Let me tell you, I think that's an underrated formula.
I,
That little, just that little
A
tip.
hundred percent. I mean, I believe that people that don't do that and lower their marketing budget basically are saying, "I want to be around for a year," and that's it.
Yeah,
That's
right.
that's
Yeah,
why they die out. That's the main
yeah.
reason,
A lot of people, yeah, they just want to put it on the pocket, and they think they're being smart by not reinvesting. But
right? Okay, so I
yeah,
think I was gonna ask you one last question, but I think that's a good one to leave with. I think that's a good tip to end this. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say out there to people that are listening. Um, uh, I think there's a lot of that, that they
no,
will
listen.
learn.
I think for your viewers, honestly, I think that you're doing a great job, and
Thank you.
you've done an example of evolving within your sphere.
Right.
So you really have, and you stuck to it, and I commend you. I've seen how you've had your 3 years. A lot of people start new projects, and there's no consistency, and you've been there, year after year. You got your book. Hammer away, sticking to sticking to your guns and to what you know, and
Right.
now you're giving it, and now you're giving back. And so I commend you on that. And to your listeners, you're coming to the right place to get your information
Thank
in
you.
this industry.
Thank you. Guys, again, you heard it. You heard it from him. By the way, go get the book if you don't have it yet, The Nightlife Entrepreneur on Amazon.
Absolutely.
Remember, you can follow me on Instagram at The Nightlife Entrepreneur, and you can find all the other episodes. You can find the courses. You can find a little bit of everything at nightlife.university. No.com, just nightlife.university.
University. Yeah, yeah, I seen.
Aurelio, thank you so much,
Thank you, my brother. I
and
appreciate it. Love it, man.
I'll be seeing you around.